Hello, Taylor Ellwood with Magical Experiments, and today I'm going to talk about how divination is actually a form of enchantment. So, when you think of divination, you might think of using tarot cards, runes, astrology, um, or the I Ching, or any number of other various types of tools that can be used to quote-unquote predict the future. If we look at the act of divination, what we'll discover is that the act of divination actually creates what's known in physics as an observer's effect, which basically means that when you observe something, you change the outcome. So essentially, let's say you do a tarot card reading for somebody. That person comes to you and they say, what do I need, when am I going to get my next job? So you do your reading and everything else. The act of observation that you and that person are doing by doing that reading, you're doing the reading, you're telling them when they're going to have their next job. The act of observation actually sets things up for them so that so it basically tells them when they're going to get their next job. It creates a streamlined experience of that particular question. So I think of divination really as a form of enchantment because of the fact that what you're doing is you're actually creating a very specific outcome through the reading that you're giving somebody or that you're giving yourself. You may not necessarily intend to do that, but you're narrowing the field of possibilities down so that what's available to you is actually the possibility that you're presenting to yourself or to the other person about what is going to occur. Now, you might say, well, this is a little disheartening because I don't necessarily like that reading. Well, the thing to keep in mind is that ultimately you are getting some information, and so what you can do is look at that information and decide how to modify it or change it. But the other thing to keep in mind is that a tarot reading or any type of divination is ultimately a tool, and how you use that tool changes what you do with it. So if you're not happy with the reading, do another reading, or change the reading, draw some further cards or runes or whatever else, and change what the parameters are. Also, if we look at divination as an actual enchantment thing, we can purposely do a reading with that in mind. So for example, I'll do a reading where I will pull cards up and I will deliberately set them up in order to create a specific narrative sequence that is going to explain how the possibility is going to unfold. And so what it does is I'm actually setting the events up one after the other. And as a result, as each event unfolds, it generates more and more manifestation of the desired reality that you want to manifest. So keep in mind that when you're doing this, that you can turn it into a purposeful act, fully intentionally, that you're doing, as opposed to I'm doing this reading and, well, this just happened to happen. And why did it happen? Well, it's because of observer effect. Well, yes, there's that, but let's turn observer effect into an actual tool for our workings. Anyway, that might give you some ideas to experiment with, and if you haven't experimented with it in that way, why not give it a try? Do a couple of readings and do them with the intent that you're actually setting up the possibility that you want to manifest, and then keep a record for what happens. Have comments about what I've shared? Leave them below, and if you found this video helpful, please subscribe.